Mycospawn in Newport City with River. I felt the need for a jaunt out of the northern woods, however much I loved living with my parents, and realised how long it had been since I had seen River. I decided to go visit him in Newport City, where he was doing film work as a production assistant. He had been a bit distant since his breakup from his relationship of 3 years, so I figured he needed some extra good old friend energy. Besides, I had only been to Newport once, and felt like I still hadn't had the classic experience that keeps people wanting to go back. Not to mention, we had tickets to see one of my favourite psychedelic rock bands, Kikagaku Moyo. River and I made a tentative plan of consuming some Mycospawn before the show for the sake of evoking some geometric shapes, if we were lucky. The plan was tentative because there was no telling how we'd really feel in the moment when it came time to consume the Mycospawn and make our way to the show. Either way, I figured the spawn were a good thing to bring, just in case. So I jumped on the 6-hour bus ride, Newport bound, ready for a fresh experience. I managed to rest a bit on the ride as well as work on my written works as the bus blasted its way down the industrial highways, moving further and further away from the majority green landscapes. I could sense the nature escaping from within, unsure how what remained of the vibes would serve me in a concrete jungle. Eventually, I made my way off the bus at Pork Authority, the bus station mecca of Newport, and found my way through the labyrinthine ensemble of steel and cement. Once out in broad daylight, the low-quality air and the collection of acrid aromas was palpable. What drew people to this wasteland? I shuddered at the thought that it wasn't even winter yet, that there was a time every year where it was much colder, dirtier, and crammed, and still people paid an arm and a leg just to tell others that they were making it in the city. Call it the city consciousness at large, in general, but I think Newport has its own sickness. Anyway, in textual communication with River, I found his apartment. There were 4 homeless types hovering outside the building, making some kind of racket about illicit power nonsense. River's abode wasn't roomy by any means, but it was a fair flat for the area. We tried to catch up, chatting in his room, but even with the windows closed, we were distracted by the ruckus of the unemployed just outside. We consumed green power quickly, almost as a safety mechanism for our minds, and then took off on a walk that would lead us to the show eventually. We decided to leave the Mycospawn for the next day so that we could enjoy the therapeutic effects in the safety of River's own home, rather than sketching out in public at something we were supposed to be enjoying. Green power would suffice for generating a light geometric pattern ensemble. The venue for the show turned out to be quite dusty, sequestered away in some Newport Shooklin back street. Perhaps we were supposed to feel edgy for making the journey to the location. I haven't much to say about the show, other than it sounded phenomenal. But we both looked forward to our little return to Mycospawn experimentation together the next day. We consumed the Mycospawn at noon via the same lemon juice ginger tea concoction I had tried before, and we each took a bit less than a normal medium dose. Within 30 minutes, we felt our minds ballooning, and suddenly the lighting of the room became more dramatic, along with the music we were listening to, the album Opal by Vinyl Williams. When I closed my eyes, I saw the geometric patterns I wanted to see in synchronization with the music, which consequently generated a unique brand of ecstasy. It was all good and fun, a perfect return for the both of us, and we spent our time in his room this way for the first 2 hours of the experience. Once we felt less intimidated by the outside world, we went off into the streets, and River gave me a general tour of Shooklin and Retrospect Park. I felt as though the majority of people I saw were closed off, at least mildly bothered, and a bit resigned to some strange city fate. The classic city thoughts, I know, but it was so crystal clear that it was hard to handle. Perhaps we should have stayed in the apartment, I started to think. I was also self-conscious about what I was wearing, as I sported a red t-shirt with Radiohead's Hail to the Thief artwork on the front, along with tight black jeans. Why was I self-conscious about this? The red and black combo felt a little too classically masculine, and I felt myself blending into the city too much. How different would I have felt if I stuck to the cooler colours? We enjoyed Indian food for dinner and some green power throughout the rest of the night, and I took off back to the northern woods shortly after waking the next morning. I wasn't so sure how I felt about it all. While it was always pleasant visiting River, and I quite enjoyed Retrospect Park, the greater vibe of New Pork wasn't really doing it for me. The concrete had all but completely taken over, and I felt like this was no place for those who need a greater natural connection. I was a bit worried about River after this breakup he had faced, for he was noticeably preoccupied, but I also believed that his environment wasn't helping in the slightest. I'd hold off on coming to any conclusions until next time, I figured, and tried my best to sleep on the long bus ride away from the metropolis, not knowing if I should have spent my money another way.